Oh, wow.
Welcome, everybody, to today's Scottsdale Big Book Study, where we will be studying the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Today is the 16th of August, 2025. My name is Audrey-Anne, and I am a recovered compulsive overeater from County Meath in Ireland, and I will be your host for today's study. Our co-hosts are Rob H. and Sue L. If you have any questions during the meeting, please contact either myself or any of the co-hosts by private message in the chat function, and the chat function will be disabled until 5 minutes before the question and answer session. Please note that the speaker, Harlan G., will be recorded for the duration of the study. However, the Q&A sessions which follow will not be recorded. We ask if you can please make sure to keep your microphone on mute at all times during the study. And also, please turn off your video if you are exercising, eating, or if you need to step away from your screen for any reason. But we'd love to see as many people as we could on camera. During the meeting, we will post the link of our seventh tradition, and the money goes towards our Zoom account, the cost of uploading our recordings. And we also send contributions to our intergroup, Arizona Serenity in the Desert, and a World Service Organization. We will also post the link to the previous week's recordings, and this will be available by clicking on the link, which will be posted in the chat box. And I will now turn you over to Harlan G. Thanks, Harlan.
Thank you, Audrey. Thank you very much. Before I say one word today, before I say anything, I want to express my gratitude for Hillary H. and Chanel T. for speaking last week when I was at the retreat in Phoenix. Very indebted to Chanel and to Hillary for the wonderful job that they did speaking and substituting and all that. They did a fantastic job. I must have heard from 30 people this week singing their praises and letting me know how wonderful these two young ladies did. And boy, you don't have to tell me. I know both of them, and they are magnificent, just magnificent. So I want to say thank you to Chanel T and Hillary H. Hillary's not here, but I just want to thank her. I'm so excited this morning. We're going to finish Bill's story, but there's a lot to talk about. We've been talking about the life of Bill Wilson, and we've been talking about what is interwoven in Bill's story is not just an example of the way Bill drinks and the way Bill thinks, but it's, do I identify with the way Bill thinks? Do I eat the way he drinks? Do I think the way he thinks? And the answer for me is unequivocally yes. And as we go through Bill's story and we see the progressive nature of the disease, how his drinking, his thinking, his attitudes, his behaviors, his life spin more and more and more downward as the first 8 pages continue. And then he gets a visit from Ebby Thatcher at the bottom of page 8. And Ebby Thatcher brings him an idea. And the idea that he brings is of a spiritual solution to Bill's problem. And Bill knows the problem of alcoholism from Silkworth. Dr. Silkworth explained to Bill Wilson that it is a twist of the mind and it is an allergy of the body, that Bill has a mind that hooks into the ease and comfort that Dr. Silkworth calls the effect. The effect is that sense of ease and comfort that comes instantly by drinking. For me, there is a sense of ease and comfort that comes instantly by eating certain foods. Now, unfortunately, broccoli and cauliflower and boiled chicken or roasted chicken were not on the list. What was on the list for me was pizza and French fries. And what was on the list for me was Reese's peanut butter cups and chocolate pudding and things like that, that I really wanted more than I wanted to live my life. I wanted to eat myself to death. I just wanted to eat myself to death. Do I relate to the way Bill thinks? Yes. Do I eat the way he drinks? Yes. And there is also the allergy of the body. And that is, Dr. Silkworth tells us in the doctor's opinion, any description of the alcoholic which leaves out this physical factor is incomplete. And so I have to remember how vital it is for me to always remember that the disease is not just that I want to eat, but I cannot stop once I've started because of this physical allergy. And Bill Wilson is unaware that there is any remedy at all. And he tries to diet on his own. He goes on what we would call a diet. He's going to try to not drink as best he can, use his human willpower not to drink. And we see where he goes from there. So the bottom line is, when Bill is visited by Ebby at the bottom of page 8, he is very hopeless. He's already been hospitalized at that time twice. The first time he was hospitalized was in April of 1933. He leaves the hospital with the knowledge that it is an illness, and that although he had been foolish, he was certainly and selfish, he was certainly ill bodily and mentally. So he's aware now of what's going on with him. He's hospitalized again after staying sober most of a year. He's hospitalized again in April of 1934. In April of 1934, Lois Wilson is told by Dr. Silkworth that in Dr. Silkworth's opinion, Bill is an alcoholic. Lois asks Dr. Silkworth, what can be done for him? What can we do? And Dr. Silkworth tells Lois, there's nothing we can do, Lois. We're going to have to give him over to the asylum or the undertaker. And that's what would happen with alcoholics. They would either go to jail, they would go in an asylum, or they would go and be dead. They would not go and be dead, but they would die. Go and be dead. Where did I get that? Okay. Anyway, the bottom line is that they would die, they would get locked up, they would go to an asylum. None of those were solutions that Lois wanted to hear, but she had to come to the conclusion that nothing that she was doing, nothing that Bill was doing, nothing that she was doing was keeping him sober. And then he gets this visit from Ebby Thatcher. And Ebby Thatcher tells Bill that he has been sober for 2 months. Now, why was Ebby so perfect of a messenger? I mean, perfect. Dr. Silkworth tells us that in order for the message to be carried, it must have depth and weight. Ebby was absolutely perfect. Why? Because Bill knew that Ebby Thatcher was a drunk. He didn't send some guy out to preach to Bill. He didn't send some guy out that had never been drunk a day in his life to talk to Bill about the evils of drinking liquor. God didn't do that. What God did do is he sent Bill a messenger that he could relate to, another drunk. And that drunk was Ebby Thatcher. Now, Ebby did not know about the disease because he had never been in the town's hospital. Ebby did not know about the physical allergy. Ebby did not know about the twist of the mind. Ebby did not know any of these things, but he was staying sober. Bill knew about the twist of the mind. Bill knew about the allergy of the body. But when Ebby visited Bill, Bill was drinking and was drunk at the time. Bill listens to Ebby, and at first he is resistant to anything Ebby is saying. He doesn't want to hear about this God thing. He makes fun of Ebby. Ebby says, I've got religion. Bill says, what brand of religion did you buy, Ebby? So that's it. Last summer, an alcoholic crackpot. This summer, a religious nut, whatever it is. So the bottom line is, as Ebby is talking to Bill, there is a thought that's going through Bill's mind. And the thought that's going through Bill's mind at that time is, Ebby is sober. I remember when I went to England, this is Bill, not me. This Bill is saying to himself, I remember when I went to Winchester Cathedral and I saw the doggerel on that old tombstone. Here lies a Hampshire grenadier who caught his death drinking cold small beer. A good soldier is ne'er forgot, whether he dieth by musket or by pot. And what that means is this was a guy, Thomas Thetcher, who drank himself to death. Now, Bill's father was an alcoholic, and after the divorce in 1906, Bill's father had very little to do with him. Bill felt very abandoned by his dad. Bill's grandfather was an alcoholic. It wreaked havoc on his family and it wreaked havoc on his marriage. Bill's grandfather's marriage was not good because of the alcoholism. Bill's parents' marriage wasn't good because of the alcoholism. Bill has been warned his entire life. Bill, don't drink liquor. Bill, don't drink liquor because it'll ruin your life. He goes to New York, he drinks liquor, he has these Bronx cocktails, these cordials, and he feels like $1 million. Liquor did something for him that nothing else could do. Liquor became Bill's solution to his problem. I didn't eat Reese's peanut butter cups because I liked the taste. Truth be known, they don't taste very good. They're pretty crappy. But Reese's peanut butter cups and Oreo cookies and pizza and French fries made me feel like James Bond. They made me feel like I could dream. They made me feel like I could be a part of life because I was never a part of life. I was always the fattest person in my environment. I went on my first date when I was 35 years of age. The passions of youth, the romance of youth, the success of youth, the dreams of youth, that ship has sailed for me and I will never get that time back. But when I would eat pizza for about 9 seconds, the world was my little oyster. When my mouth would close on that food, something magical would happen. The unfortunate reality, though, is I also have a physical allergy, which made it impossible to stop. And my mental twist, my mental blank spot, my mental blank spot prevented me from remembering the horror and the horrible things that food did to me. And in that moment, I can only remember what food would do for me. And that pizza would take me away. When I was a little boy, they used to have commercials for Calgon detergent, Calgon, and they used to say, Calgon, take me away. And they'd have this in the barber shop, there was a woman that did your nails, or in the beauty salon. And the character was Madge. And they'd say, Madge, whatever it was, soak my fingers or whatever. And Madge would say, Calgon, take me away. And that was the commercial, and it was very effective. I don't know if some of you, if you're my age, you remember that. Calgon, take me away. Well, as low as my life got, and as horrible as my life got, I remember the nights of homecoming. I remember the nights of the dances and the things I couldn't go to. There was no way. How was I going to go to these things? So I would eat and I would order a pizza and I would do whatever. Hey, pizza, take me away, baby. Take me away. So this is, do I think like Bill thinks? You betcha. When people were jumping off the towers of high finance, he says, I wouldn't jump. I went back to the bar. He knew, without knowing it intellectually, somewhere inside of him, he knew that the liquor would just make him feel correct. Now on page 12, this is where the confluence, this is where the nexus is, the putting together. This is where that nexus is. This is when a confluence is with two rivers. And when two rivers come together to make one river, it is never that they make a river that is less than or equal to the two that are coming together. They make a greater river, a greater river. So here is where everything comes together, where step one has now met step two. And this is the very beginning on step 12, on page 12, excuse me, page 12 of our program. It says 3/4 of the way down the page, thus was I convinced that God is concerned with us humans when we want him enough. How do I display that I want him enough? I work the steps. And when I walk to God, he will run to me. He will, and he always has. He will run to me. And I've related the story in here. It was, my daughter was, I believe, 11 months old. So this would be November of 95. And it was a Thursday. I'll never forget that day. It was a Thursday. I came in from work. I got home about 3:30 in the afternoon. I would leave for work about 5:15 in the morning, and I would get home about 3:30. And my wife was beaming. Oh, she was so happy. And she wouldn't tell me what was up. She said, it's not official until her father sees this. And I was her father. So we're sitting there watching television. And all of a sudden, my daughter grabbed one of the dogs, had to be Honey Bear at that time, grabbed the dog and pulled herself up and fell back down. About a minute later, whatever it was, 2 minutes later, she pulls herself up again. The poor dog, she's grabbing ears and grabbing the dog. She pulled herself up and she took a step toward us. I jumped off the couch. I lifted her up. I kissed her feet. I kissed her knees. I kissed her hands. I kissed her face, her head about 30,000 times. That's God reacting to our efforts to be closer to him. He can love more purely and more unconditionally than we as humans can even fathom. And when I walk to God, I don't always get my way, but I get a life beyond my wildest dreams. I get a life beyond my wildest dreams. And it's a life that includes honor and dignity rather than the degradation and the shame and the guilt and the horror of the food. I would wake up every morning with shame and horror and guilt and suicidal thoughts because of what I did to myself the night before with food, the day before with food. So let's take a look at the next sentence, because this is the nexus, the putting together. This is the confluence. And now when we start, we're going to start on page 13. But I want to go over this because this is so critical in the history of planet Earth, that once this moment takes place, the world as we know it will never be the same. Let's take a look at the sentence that I'm talking about. I'm on page 12, near the bottom. At long last, I saw, I felt, I believed. What did he see? He saw recovery in Ebby. Now, unfortunately, Ebby didn't stay sober for all that long. But what did he see? Now, when Bill was in the hospital, he saw people that were alcoholics and heavy drinkers and moderate drinkers not drinking. But the alcoholics were not happy about it. They weren't happy in their release from the food. But Ebby was happy in his release because he was doing spiritual things. There was the 6-step program of the Oxford Group movement. He saw recovery. He felt. What did he feel? Hope. Why did he feel hope? Specifically, why did he feel hope? Because he thought in his mind correctly that if Ebby Thatcher, that drunken bum that Bill had known since they were 10 years old at Burr and Burton Academy in Vermont, in Manchester, Vermont. If this drunken bum can stay sober and be happy about it, I probably can too. And the last is, I believe. What did Bill believe? That God could and would if he were sought. And he will repeat that on page 60 at C, that God could and would if he were sought. What a moment in time. Make sure it's highlighted in your book. But more importantly than highlighted in your book, make sure it's highlighted in your spirit. Make sure it's highlighted in your soul, in your mind, and in everything you do. I saw, at long last, I saw recovery. One of the reasons that I encourage people to open up their cameras when you're on this meeting or any of our Scottsdale meetings, one of the reasons I encourage people to open up their camera is because there are people in recovery, and I want the people that are coming in that are new to see the recovery in the faces of the recovered. How are you going to know there's people here in recovery unless you can see it? I saw, I felt. What did he feel? Hope. He felt hope for the first time since he came home from World War I believed that God could and would if he were sought. Now, for the rest of November, which wasn't much, and for the first 11 days of December, Bill Wilson is attending Oxford group meetings at the mission, the Calvary Mission in New York. And he meets Sam Shoemaker. And Sam Shoemaker was an Episcopalian minister who became the front man in the Oxford group movement in New York at the Calvary Mission. Now, many of us are going to Newark in November, and we all like to go, not all, but I've been to Stepping Stones twice, which is Bill and Lois's home in Westchester County. And that's a great trip. But if you go to the Calvary Mission, yes, it's still there. There's a big stained glass window. You make a right and a right, a right and a left. Sorry, a right and a left. And there's a big stained glass window, and it says, donated by Roland Hazard. Remember that Jung told Roland, Roland told Ebby told Bill, Bill told the world. It's still there. It's a beautiful thing. But Bill Wilson, at long last, I saw, I felt, I believed. Okay, let's go to page 13. Let's go to page 13, which is just the next page. At the hospital, I was separated from alcohol for the last time. Now, let's stop right there. Let's stop right there. I get this question a zillion times a week. Can I work the steps with my sponsee even though they're still in the food? You can, but you're wasting your time. Because if I'm getting the effect from pizza, if I'm getting this effect from M&Ms with peanuts, obviously I'm not buying M&Ms without peanuts. Obviously, whoever buys them, these are not Jewish people. I'm sorry. Why would I buy M&Ms without peanuts when for the same money I can get them with peanuts? I don't understand this thinking. This is Meshuggah thinking to me. I'm getting the ones with, if I'm going down, I'm going down with the peanuts. I want my farts to smell. I want my stomach to be upset. I want all kinds of digestive problems. I'm going peanuts. All right, that aside. But go to an AA meeting and ask them, hey, can I work the steps while I'm still drinking? And they'll laugh at you. They'll think you're crazy. Why do people in OA think that it's okay to work the steps while they're eating? I don't understand it. So this is the 11th of December, 1934. He comes in and he's waving a bottle of gin. He's just been to the Oxford group meeting, but he's still drinking. He's still drinking. And he's waving a bottle, and he says to Dr. Silkworth, who's in the hallway of the hospital, it's like 6, 7 o'clock at night. That's how dedicated Silkworth was. He's in the hallway working with a man that came in with alcohol, with drunkenness. And Dr. Silkworth figures that what Bill has found is the bottle of gin that he's waving, because he can see Bill's drunk. Dr. Silkworth says to Bill Wilson, go upstairs, take your clothes off, get into bed, get in a gown, get into bed, and I'll be up in a minute to visit you. That was on the 11th of December, 1934. On that day, Bill had his last drink. He will be sober on the 12th and the 13th. 2 days. Bill Dotson is going to talk about 2 days. Dr. Bob, all these guys, not 2 weeks, not 30 days, not 60 days. They have to be sober or clean 2 days. On the 14th of December, he will start working the steps. But let's finish this paragraph. I was separated from alcohol for the last time. He will never drink liquor again as long as he lives. There will never be a drink of liquor that will pass his lips, and he will pass from us on June 24th. His wedding anniversary is January, not June, January 24th, 1971. At the hospital, I was separated from alcohol for the last time. Treatment seemed wise, for I showed signs of delirium tremens. And he knew that in towns, Silkworth would look after his medical needs, and he could get belladonna. Belladonna, as I told you before, is a poison. But Charlie Towns figured a way to cut the effect of the poison, and it served as a sedative. And by using a sedative, these guys could calm down long enough to not the delirium tremens, the shaking. They would go through the withdrawal of the alcohol, and they could get him sober. So he comes in there. It shows signs of delirium tremens. I used to be able to talk. Now I can't speak. I don't know what happened. All right. Now, in this next paragraph on page 13, Bill is going to work the first 3 steps of what we know as Alcoholics Anonymous, step 4, 6, and 7. Let's take a look at the paragraph, and I'll point out to you what he's doing. This is going to be on the 14th of December, 1934. There I humbly offered myself to God as I then understood him, to do with me as he would. I placed myself unreservedly under his care and direction. I admitted for the first time that of myself I was nothing, that without him I was lost. So these are the first 3 steps that we know today as the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. He is admitting he's powerless, and he is admitting he needs God, that God is his only way out. I ruthlessly faced my sins, step 4, and became willing to have my newfound friend. Notice that friend is capitalized. He's talking about God, okay? Take them away, root and branch. I have not had a drink since. That his willingness to have his newfound friend take them away, steps 6 and 7. So in this paragraph here, with God by himself, he has worked 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7. I'll go over that again. This paragraph, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7. Let's go to the next paragraph. My schoolmate visited me. That's Ebby. Okay. So now here's Ebby in the room. And I fully acquainted him with my problems and deficiencies. Step 5. Step 5. We made a list of people I had hurt or toward whom I felt resentment. Step 8. I expressed my entire willingness to approach these individuals. Step 9. Admitting my wrong. 9. Never was I to be critical of them. And that's step 10. I was to write all such matters to the utmost of my ability. So in this little paragraph, we have 5, 8, 9, and 10. Now, before we go to the next paragraph, I want to tell you something that happened when Ebby walked in the room. Mine's over there. I should have had it over here, but you'll just have to use your imagination. Ebby brought with him a book that was extremely popular in the Oxford group at that time. And that book is by William James, and it is called The Varieties of Religious Experience. Now, this is a very boring book. It's a book that was written by psychologists for psychologists in Edinburgh, Scotland in 1901. They had a conference. And at this conference, they had people telling their story, what they were like, what happened, and what they're like now. And it became a way for people to relate to the psychologists how they found God. Does that sound familiar? Let me say it again, see if you can recognize it. What they were like, what happened, and what they're like now. In other words, it's like the stories we tell every speaker meeting and the stories we have in the back of the book. There are 4 books that were instrumental in the formation of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and this is one of them, The Varieties of Religious Experience by William James. Very, very instrumental. And I've already given you the names of these 4 books a zillion times, but I'll do it again here just for the sake of continuity. The 4 books that were very instrumental in the writing of the big book are the Book of James, New Testament, Sermon on the Mount by Emmett Fox, The Varieties of Religious Experience by William James, and The Common Sense of Drinking by Richard Peabody. Those are the 4 books. If somebody could put those in the chat, it'll save us a question later. The 4 books that were instrumental in the writing of the big book, and this is one of them. It's why you have the stories, and that's how we get the format for our speaker meetings. What were you like? What happened to you? And what are you like now? Okay, how did you find God? Now, the next paragraph on page 13 is where Bill is going to take step 11. And this paragraph is pure Oxford group. Every word comes from Oxford group thinking. So the Oxford group had a lot of influence on our program, our altruism, helping others, things like that. That's all coming to us from the Oxford group. So we have a debt to pay. And the way we pay it is to pay forward what God has done for you. All right, the next paragraph is mirrored on page 87, but this is page 13, and it's pure Oxford group. Let's see what it says. I was to test my thinking by the new God consciousness within. Common sense would thus become uncommon sense. In other words, he's not going to rely on his human intellect. He's going to wait to hear through his silent meditation. He's going to wait to hear what God has in store for, what God wants from him. One of the things I try to do every day is to shut up long enough to let God get a word in edgewise. It's not always easy because my pie hole is flapping all the time. I got to quiet myself down and let God get a word in edgewise. Because, I want to tell him, I want your will. No, not that car, the red car. Yeah, the Bentley. That's the one I want. No, no, God, not that house, the house on the next block. I want to direct God. See, I want God's will, but I want to direct God and tell God what I need and what I want. See, and that's never worked for me. Maybe I'll try it again today. Maybe I'll try it again tomorrow. Probably will, but it probably won't work any better the next time I try it because it just doesn't work. But common sense would thus become uncommon sense. And that means he's going to rely on that still small voice inside of him that is the voice of God. In my part of the Bible, it says, shh, be still, for I am God. Be still, for I am God. Not Harlan, God. Be still. And that's what I have to do every day. The hardest thing for me, somebody very wise, 46 years ago, when I came in here, this was a woman who was very smart. You know what she said? She said this, we were going out for coffee after a meeting on a Saturday morning, just like this. And somebody said, the hardest part about this is this, and the hardest part about that is this. You know what she said? I'll never forget it. She said, the hardest part about recovery is you got to grow up. You got to grow up when you're in recovery. You can't stay a baby, a child, an immature entity anymore. You got to grow up. And boy, she was right. She was right. I was to sit quietly when in doubt, asking only for direction and strength to meet my problems as he would have me. Does it mean that I sit quietly? Or do I sit telling God, I want this and I want that and I want this and I want that? I was to sit quietly. That means quiet. Be still, for I am God. Never was I to pray for myself, except as my requests bore on my usefulness to others. If I'm going to sit here and treat God like the Tooth Fairy, Santa Claus, and other entities like the Easter Bunny and all, I want this kind of car. I want, get me a wife, get me some money. Got to have some money. Get me this, get me that. No. That's not prayer. That's petition. That's give me this and give me that. Prayer is, how can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. Prayer is, thank you, God, for the things you've done for me. Prayer is, how can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. Prayer is not, I want this and I want that, and I want this one to do this, and I want that one to stop doing that. That's not prayer. That's trying to get my way. And I got to win the lottery. I forgot about that. Got to win the lottery, Powerball. Got to win Powerball. Got to have that. Then only might I expect to receive, but that would be in great measure. This paragraph is step 11, and it is pure Oxford group. And it is instructive to the point where it changed my life. When I would pray as a child, I was hoping that if I went and did the right thing and went to the synagogue and I prayed and I did this and I did that, God will give me what I want. Quid pro quo. You do this and I'll do that. And when I didn't get what I wanted, I didn't go and I was just mad at God. I thought God was a jerk. I thought God screwed me over. He screwed me over. I went and I did this and I did that. And I helped an old lady across the street. Not really, but I'm just using it as an example. I did this and I did that. Why aren't you giving me what I want? Doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. I want what God wants. And this shift in paradigm comes to us from the Oxford Group movement. The Oxford Group movement was not concerned with alcoholism. They were concerned with instilling enthusiasm into first century Christianity, because Frank Buckman, who founded the Oxford Group, believed that early Christians had lost their enthusiasm for Christ. Enthusiasm, there's a good word. Entheos, two Greek words, entheos, from God. Entheos, from God. Bottom of 13. My friend promised when these things were done, I would enter upon a new relationship with my Creator, that I would have the elements of a way of living which answered all my problems. There's not a problem I have that this way of life doesn't solve. Now, when I needed a hip replaced or a knee replaced, I didn't go to a meeting and say, pray for me. I went to a surgeon. But I had the money to pay the surgeon because of the program. I had the wherewithal not to be afraid of the doctor because of the program. There are three things that scare a fat boy more than anything: doctors, girls, and buying clothes. Nothing will scare a fat boy more than girls, doctors, and some guy walking towards you with a tape measure telling you, I don't think we have anything in this store that's going to fit you. I had to go from Ron's Rhinoceros Emporium to Herb's Hippo Emporium, and then go to Ed's Elephant Emporium just to buy an underwear t-shirt. So when they start coming at you and saying, we have nothing to fit you, it was difficult to hear. Belief in the power of God plus enough willingness, honesty, and humility to establish, I'm at the top of 14, and maintain the new order of things were the essential requirements. Simple but not easy, a price had to be paid. It meant destruction of self-centeredness. I must turn in all things to the Father of light, who presides over us all. Sometimes it's still, after all these years, it's still hard for me to wrap my brain around the fact that my life isn't perfect, that the promise of the world, lose weight and everything will be okay. No, I lost weight and I weighed less and I looked better, but there were still problems. There were still, and that's not, I wasn't prepared for that. The only group on earth that doesn't have problems are the unborn and the dead, because this is the way life is. Life is to live, is to have these challenges. And what is the advantage of these challenges? And I know some of us face more Herculean things than we think we can handle. That's why we have God. But these challenges bring us to God. And if something brings me to God, it's a good thing, not a bad thing. Do I want to go through the death of my friend? Or do I want to go through that? Heck no. Do I want the Cubs to leave the bases loaded yesterday with no outs and not get a run? Heck no. But these problems are what brings me to God. As my friend Larry Kay in Chicago says, nobody comes in here on a roll. We don't come in here because things went well for us. We come in here because things didn't go well for us. Nobody comes in here on a roll. Top of 14, simple but not easy. A price had to be paid. It meant destruction of self-centeredness. I must turn in all things to the Father of light, who presides over us all. These were revolutionary and drastic proposals, but the moment I fully accepted them, how do I know I've accepted them? When I'm acting on it. There's a mental or an emotional acceptance, but that has to translate into action. What is the purpose of step 3? The purpose of step 3 is to say, I'm going to do 4 through 12 every day for the rest of my life. I'm going to put this into action, because this is not a program for people who need it. This is not a program for people who want it. This is a program for people who do it. It's an action program, and all the belief and all the acceptance and all the willingness in the world will not get me sober, will not get me abstinent. I have to take action. Very important to remember. Don't sit there and wait for willingness. You'll be waiting for the rest of your life. Forget willingness. Take the action in the face of your unwillingness, and the willingness will come. It's weird how it works that way, but it does work that way. These were revolutionary and drastic proposals, but the moment I fully accepted them, the effect was electric. There was such a sense of victory, followed by such a peace and serenity as I had never known. There was utter confidence. Confidence in himself? No. Confidence in God, because this is the moment on the morning of the 15th of December when Bill is having his spiritual experience. A spiritual experience is very quick, very sudden, very profound. A spiritual awakening is slower in developing. I've never had a spiritual experience. I've only had spiritual awakenings. And Bill is in the town's hospital and he's having a spiritual experience. There was utter confidence, not in himself, but in God and in this way of life. I felt lifted up as though the great clean wind of a mountaintop blew through and through. God comes to most men gradually, but his impact on me was sudden and profound. I've never had a spiritual experience. I am in recovery. I have 26 years of abstinence. I've never had one. If you've never had one, don't worry. It's not the norm to have an experience. It's more normal to have an awakening. Don't worry about it. It still gets you to the same place, Recoveryville. You're going to Recoveryville, and you'll get there as easy with an experience as you will with a awakening. It doesn't matter. But Bill has now worked the first 11 steps and he's had a spiritual awakening. Let's see where he goes from here. For a moment, I was alarmed and called my friend, the doctor, Silkworth, to ask if I were still sane. He listened in wonder as I talked. Finally, he shook his head, saying, "Something has happened to you I don't understand, but you had better hang on to it. Anything is better than the way you were." The good doctor now sees many men who've had such experiences. He knows that they are real. Now, I want to remind you of something. It's important. Bill is a selfish, drunk son of a bitch who never gave a damn about anybody in his life. Never. He loved Lois. Yeah, he loved Lois, and Lois loved him, and all, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, great. He was a selfish son of a bitch and a drunk and a taker. Let's see what happens now that he's had his spiritual experience. While I lay in the hospital, the thought came that there were thousands of hopeless alcoholics who might be glad to have what had been so freely given me. Wow. That is the effect of God. His complete thinking is not, what can I get out of this? How can I suck the marrow out of the bone of this? No, he's thinking of someone else. That's not him. Perhaps I could help some of them. They in turn might work with others. There you have it. That people in recovery think of others. Our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. We must play the Good Samaritan every day. Helping people once in a while is not enough. This is an altruistic movement. This is a movement where we think of others, not in a sick way, not in, I'm going to do this for this one and then they're going to like me, or I'm going to do this for that one and they're going to give me this. No. Giving with no expectation of return. That's altruism. Now let's see what Ebby teaches us about sponsorship. My friend, notice it's not in capital. He's talking about Ebby. My friend had emphasized the absolute necessity of demonstrating these principles in all my affairs. What are the principles? The principles are the steps. Particularly, was it imperative? What's imperative mean? Important above all else. Imperative to work with others as he had worked with me. Faith without works was dead, he said. And how appallingly true for the alcoholic. For if an alcoholic failed to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others, I'm at the top of 15. He could not survive the certain trials and low spots ahead. If he did not work, he would surely drink again. If he drank, he would surely die. Then faith would be dead indeed. With us, it is just like that. Sponsor or die in the food. You don't want to sponsor? You're afraid to sponsor? You better be afraid not to. Because if you don't sponsor, you're working an 11-step program, and that doesn't work. I want all 12 steps. I sponsor every single day. You don't have to give me a medal. You don't have to give me the key to the city, but you must sponsor. You're worried you're not going to be the perfect sponsor? Tough. None of us are. If you have questions on how to sponsor, we're here for you. Let the big book do the heavy lifting. You don't have to be the perfect sponsor. You just have to make yourself available to them every day. I don't want to hear this, I'm out of town, or my sponsor's out of town. I don't want to hear that. Unless you're going to the moon or Jupiter, there's cell service where you're going. There's no breaks from this. This is an everyday endeavor. You found the time to eat every day, you find the time to sponsor every day. You found the time to eat when you were out of town, you find the time to sponsor when you're out of town. I'm busy too. I have a business. I work. I have responsibilities. I find the time. You can too. My wife and I abandon ourselves with enthusiasm to the idea of helping other alcoholics to a solution of their problems. It was fortunate for my old business associates remained skeptical for a year and a half, during which I found little work. I was not too well at the time and was plagued by waves of self-pity and resentment. This sometimes nearly drove me back to drink, but I soon found that when all other measures failed, work with another alcoholic would save the day. Tattoo that line in your brain. Work when all other measures failed, work with another alcoholic would save the day. You're sad, you're down. First question I'm going to ask you is, what have you done for somebody else? Many times I have gone to my old hospital in despair. I'm talking to a man there. I would be amazingly lifted up and set on my feet. It is a design for living that works in rough going. In other words, he had to get on the train, go into Manhattan from Brooklyn. Then he had to walk over to the town's hospital and make himself useful by talking to somebody. He had to take action. And because he took that action, he will never drink again. But you've got to take it every day. You can't just take it twice and think, that's it, I'm cured. He took it every day. Page 15. We commenced to make many fast friends. Remember when he had fair weather friends? Now he's making fast friends. And a fellowship has grown up among us, of which it is a wonderful thing to feel a part. The joy of living we really have, even under pressure and difficulty. I have seen hundreds of families set their feet in the path that really goes somewhere. Have seen the most impossible domestic situations righted, feuds and bitternesses of all sorts wiped out. I have seen men come out of asylums and resume a vital place in the lives of their families and communities. Business and professional men have regained their standing. There is scarcely any form of trouble and misery which has not been overcome among us. In one Western city, Akron, Ohio, and its environs, there are 1,000 of us and our families. We meet frequently so that newcomers may find the fellowship top of 16 they seek. At these informal gatherings, one must often see from 50 to 200 persons. We are growing in numbers and power. An alcoholic in his cups is an unlovely creature. Our struggles with them are variously strenuous, comic, and tragic. One poor chap committed suicide in my home. He could not or would not see our way of life. There is, however, a vast amount of fun about it all. I suppose some would be shocked at our seeming worldliness and levity, but just underneath there is deadly earnestness. Faith has to work 24 hours a day in and through us, or we perish. Most of us feel we need look no further for utopia. We have it with us right here and now. Each day, my friend's simple talk in our kitchen multiplies itself in a widening circle of peace on earth and goodwill to men. Bill Wilson died on January 24th, which was his wedding anniversary, 1971. The work that Bill Wilson did will never die. 20,000 years from now, people will talk about Bill Wilson. You have an opportunity to achieve that same immortality by sponsoring. To a person who is suffering, they need somebody. To the world, you're a person. To that person, you can be the world. And you can light them up and give them hope. And they can't get hope from the psychiatrist, and they can't get hope from the therapist, and they can't get hope from the bariatric doctor, and they can't get hope from the pay and way, and they can't get hope from the drugs and all the other stuff. You can give them hope. I have a life today. I wish there were certain things about my life that were different. Absolutely, I do. I wish things were different in different areas of my life. But I have a life that goes somewhere. I have friends. I have people. I have a life that I have purpose and a mighty rhythm that underlay all. In many ways, I am a lucky man. I missed out on a lot. I missed out on the passion of youth. I missed out on the romance of youth. I missed out on ever being someone's first love or someone's first whatever. I missed all that stuff. I missed it, and it hurts. I wish I didn't have to walk into an empty house every night, but I do. Okay, fine. But I have a great life. I don't owe anybody a nickel, except for the mortgage, which is fine. I don't owe anybody a dime. I have a life that includes people. I have a life that includes God. And if I die today, I have had a life where I lived life. When I was a little boy, Holocaust survivors would grab my face and they would kiss me and say, "Live until you die. Live until you die. Live." Because this is not a dress rehearsal. This is it. This is not a practice round. This is it. If you're not in recovery, you're not where you want to be, do something different. If you want different, you got to do different. This is it. Go and live until you die. That's the secret here. Life is not going to be measured by the duration. It's going to be measured by the donation. What did you give? What did you accomplish when you were here? Use Bill Wilson's story as a way of identifying in. And what is the key point you must identify in with? That until God came into his life and he accepted a spiritual way of living, his life stuck. Are you fighting with God? Are you mad at God? Are you disappointed in God? For the love of Mike, get over it. Yes, there was a Holocaust. Yes, there's racial prejudice, and there was slavery, and there's the Trail of Tears, and there's headlines of horrible things every day. Are you going to die because of it or live in spite of it? You get to die because of it or live in spite of it. This is it. This is not a dress rehearsal. Take that from Bill's story, that until he accepted that spiritual way of life, he didn't have the good life that he had once he accepted God into his life. Okay. Let's go to questions and answers. I hope this was helpful. I'm worn out. I hope this was helpful. I'm tired. Thank you. But the bottom line is that we're going to do questions and answers. No math,